This is FD Talks, a brand new podcast series by Funeral Directors Life, where we explore ideas, insights, and solutions for serving families in a rapidly changing marketplace. Well, we're here today with Todd Carlson. Todd, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, my name is Todd, and I serve the company as Executive Vice President of Sales and Chief Sales Officer for Funeral Directors Life and all the Directors Investment Group companies. It's a role I've been in for about 15 years, and I've been in the preneed insurance side of the business since 1994, and before that I was a licensed funeral director. And I'm a graduate of the University of Minnesota's Mortuary Science program back in the Stone Age now, 1989.
That's some time ago.
Yes.
It's not quite Stone Age, but Todd, so tell me a little bit about what's new, what's cooking at Funeral Directors Life.
A good question. What we're really excited about this year is launch of the on-the-go protection program, where we've partnered with a posse on offering some additional services for families who experience a death when they're more than 75 miles away from home.
That sounds pretty exciting. Can you tell me how that idea came around, how you came to be offering this service?
Well, it's not a new idea. These products have been around for a number of years. Products and services have been around for a number of years. I know a posse's been at this more than 25 years. And so we chose to partner with them because of their experience in this arena and the level of service they provide to funeral homes. And so we're really excited about forming this relationship. It's been a couple of years in the making. We've been working with them over the last 12 months, 14 months or so. And this year, though, the focus on the on-the-go protection is really grown, and we're seeing a big increase, despite the fact that families are not traveling right now as much and not away from home as much. But they are still seeing friends and relatives, and people are still away from home enough where it's made this plan very important for families.
Todd, who is the ideal customer for this product?
Well, we prefer that this plan, this protection, be offered to every family that a funeral director or a prearrangement sales professional would meet and have contact with because of this reason. You think, well, why would that be true, Rob? The answer is simple, is even if the people that you're funding for your prearrangement are in the nursing home, the children that you're meeting with are not. And so it gives you a chance to explain the benefits of the program and the value of the protection offered. And so every family should hear about it, because you never know when, under what circumstances someone will die. And this plan could potentially save families several hundred, if not several $1,000s, if their death would occur more than 75 miles away from home.
Is this something that you think funeral homes are struggling with right now? Is that what sorts of things, what events are happening that are causing you to have identified this as a solution for a problem?
I think the biggest thing is when we meet with a family, we've always tried to be extremely thorough and complete in the funeral planning. And the idea is to say, well, you can let your kids know this is taken care of, that everything's been thought of. One element that often gets left out, Rob, is this element of what happens if I die away from home, because there are additional expenses involved with that. And so the only choice that a person has is to prearrange those items, which we run into trouble because people wonder why they would fund the air transfer and the other services that would occur on the other end, or where the death occurs, in their normal prearrangement. So what we're finding is the family would rather pay a fixed cost for the certainty of coverage no matter where they are when the death occurs. And that just makes a lot more sense from everything from a Medicaid planning perspective, because this plan is purchased one time for lifetime protection. Whereas if you have to fund all the expenses in the preneed agreement, then we have all these charges that might be on the goods and services statement that might not be Medicaid exempt. This plan would then be a one-time payment for lifetime protection. And that way, no matter what happens on the other end, the family can have the kind of service they want, and they don't have to worry about the additional expenses. And that way the funeral home can truly tell the family, look, if you die within the 75 miles, here's the charge. And this $495 that we charge for the plan covers everything else if you die more than 75 miles away. And it just makes sure that everything is truly taken care of.
So seemed like there's a lot of subtleties that it'd be really easy to overlook. It's good that you did partner with a with an organization that has done it for a number of years.
Yes. And we visited their service center, one of their main service centers out in New Jersey as part of this exploration process. I'm very satisfied with the people we met out there and the work they do and their willingness to work with the local funeral home and the receiving funeral home. So, we liked that.
You talked a little bit about the fact that families aren't traveling right now, but why is this still a good idea for the funeral home to adopt?
Well, it's funny. People think of travel as vacation. And they think of travel as going somewhere,
exotic trip to Africa.
Yeah, exactly. But, most people don't do that stuff. What they do, though, is they drive, like in Abilene here, we drive to Dallas for the day or for the weekend. If we go into the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, that's more than 75 miles from Abilene. I have that if I'm visiting friends or family or going to a medical appointment, then I have security knowing that I have that protection. And so the vast majority of our trips are not to Africa or aren't to China. They're just out visiting friends and family. And this plan is a great option for those families to have that protection and to avoid that extra expense if they're just out visiting friends and relatives.
Are you aware of any success stories or people who've used this and really been glad that they did?
Well, one of the more recent examples I heard was actually the opposite of a success story. It'd be a failure story, but I think it's worth telling. We had one of our select producers share that when they had a relative die, and I believe it was in Florida, and they did not have this protection. They had not heard of this protection, and that family made some funeral choices that they wished they wouldn't have, and that there was no undoing. So what we run into a lot of times is families who believe, if they're cremation oriented, that if they're away from home, it would be less expensive to have the cremation done at the place of death and ship the cremated body back home, and then have and go that route. Well, that's what this person chose to do with their loved ones. What they could have done had they had the on-the-go protection is they would have had no additional expense to have the body removed and embalmed at the place of death, have that body shipped back, and been able to see their loved one and have a body present at the memorial and have their send-off and their tribute the way they would wanted it to have been done. And they could have done that with this protection because there's no additional expense to go that route versus cremation.
Wow.
And so when those decisions are made and they can't say because that's the one question that I ask people from time to time is I say, well, if I'm traveling, if I'm in my winter home in Arizona and I die, they can just ship my body back. And I say, well, is your family going to be with you? So we have to think about that component of this is how can we offer a healing and meaningful tribute and allow this plan to help the funeral director lead and guide that family to the right decisions, and nothing's more responsible than an adult having protected their children from those additional expenses and those very tough choices.
If a funeral home is interested in learning more about this or even adopting this service into their organization, what are the first steps that they need to do?
Well, the first thing they should do is talk to their funeral director's life sales manager. They've been trained on the product and the process and the services that are offered. They understand how to enroll. They'll understand how to present the material to the families in a way that's easily understood. They'll also be able to train the funeral director or the sales professional to help explain the benefits of this program to families. So they completely understand the claim process too. If the death were to occur more than 75 miles away, how that would work, and how the funeral home's local interests are protected in that process too.
Let's talk about that because. Let's see, what is success? Can you describe to me what success might look like for the funeral home who is using this service?
Well, they're going to see a couple of benefits. First of all, they'll be able to tell their families that this is truly taken care of. That not only are the local transportation costs covered, but worldwide transportation costs are covered. And that's an extra benefit they can offer for a very reasonable price. The other thing is the funeral home and the sales professionals are going to receive income from the sale of the plan. And what we've seen during this pandemic over the last year, Rob, is sales professionals struggling to connect with people because of the fear of meeting. And so even though they might be offering virtual appointments and all those things, it's been a challenge. So And then the average funeral amount has been down just a little bit. It dropped significantly in April and May, but has bounced back almost to where it was. But, so overall, it's been a challenging environment. So anytime we can offer something very simply to a family while we're already meeting with them, that adds to the funeral home's bottom line, it adds to the sales professional's bottom line, and it gives families better protection. I think everyone wins in that situation.
And conversely, very similar to the story that you told just a little while ago about the family in Florida, I mean, that is what you're looking at if you choose not to act.
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes we talk about the extremes. It's $20,000 to get a body back from China. Is the number I've read about and heard. And that might not be the case. If you're in, you might just run down to Cabo for a long weekend if you have a death there. But the service also includes things like translation services. I'm not a Spanish speaker, even though I love going to Mexico. So if I have a loved one die in Mexico, I would really appreciate when documents show up that they're translated, and so that I can understand what's going on. Also, all the coordination, it's difficult to arrange transportation. So even the funeral directors that we serve, many of them have had some international shipping experience, but not many. So they typically would turn to an outside resource for that. And that outside resource would coordinate. Well, in this case, the outside resource would also coordinate, and that's through Aposse's service center. They would take care of the arrangements for the funeral director. They would coordinate everything that's needed to get those remains back to the home.
From the perspective of in the funeral home, how would a funeral director or a preneed specialist position this to the family?
Rob, that is really important, because what we found is the simpler the message, the more the family's likely to purchase the plan. And what I mean by that is if we can talk about, let's say it's a traditional funeral and it adds up to $8,000, just to use round numbers here. Instead of saying $8,000 is your cost today, and oh, by the way, we have this other plan that would add $495 to it. That's the bad way to do it. So what we would rather see, Rob, is the funeral director or the sales professional sit down with the family and have that $8,000 and then say, hey, your plan today, everything included, is $8,495. And what that includes is and they can go through the list of what it includes, and they can paint the picture of what the day of the funeral will look like and how those expenses and those activities are all covered. Then even talk about it. It also includes if your death were to occur more than 75 miles away from home, it's no additional expense to get your remains back here. And if they press to a little more detail, then we can tell the story of the cremation situation that I talked about, and then we can also let the family know that this is lifetime protection. So the trick here is to talk about one number when we're talking to the family instead of one number plus an add-on. So just to say, for $8,495, this is what's included. And when we're finding sales professionals include it that way and talk about the benefit of the plan and what's covered locally and what's covered beyond 75 miles, then the family understands it. It's very simple, and their take-up rate can be very good.
What objections are you seeing from people in the field?
Well, what we see sometimes are families saying, I don't travel. And that's true. They don't travel, but the question is do you go visit friends and relatives? Do you take a trip to Fredericksburg, a local reference here to Fredericksburg, Texas? Do you do those things? Because people die in car accidents in all kinds of ways when they're more than 75 miles away from home. Another one is to talk through where they get their medical care. So if we're in Abilene here and we go into Dallas or Houston for more advanced medical care, that should be a very strong reason to consider the plan. And then, obviously, if they do actually travel, or that's important too. But even in our friends in the north, where I grew up in Minnesota, we have this concept called a snowbird, and those are people who spend their summers in the north, and they spend their winters somewhere in the south. So this plan would also protect those people and make it very affordable to return their remains back to their home back in the north, should something happen while they're on their winter break from all the cold temperatures. And I think when we look at it that way, we have to talk about the total benefit of the plan. And with this plan, I think it's really important for people to know that it's not just, we try not to use the word travel when we talk about it. We try to use the term when you're visiting friends and relatives. Where do your kids live? Where do your friends live? And where do you shop or get your medical care? Because that's where people spend more of their time than when they're on so-called vacation.
What are some common concerns that funeral directors raise?
Well, I think part of what funeral homes are experiencing is this feeling of a lack of control. And that's really important for a funeral director to know that their family is being cared for when that family's out of town. And so I think I just need to reassure families that funeral home can be kept in the loop. The family can give the Apostasy Service Center permission to keep the funeral director fully in the loop on what's going on. So that's an important one. The other concern that we hear often is the funeral director not understanding the product, that it's something that many families could benefit from, even though, because again, the idea of the plan is, I don't have families that travel to China, and they're right, and that's why we don't like to talk about it that way. But they do have families that live in Minneapolis that have their cabin up north in Brainerd, and that's about 120 miles. So that would cover those situations. So we have to really explore those situations, and I think they're just generally concerned about the stability of any company that they would do. So this plan is a membership, and it's a lifetime membership. So that's when we look back at the stability of the company behind it and the 25 years of experience in handling these plans and having success doing so. I think those are some of the major concerns that funeral directors have, because no funeral director wants the perception that a sales professional is advocating for something someone doesn't need. And we'll tell them flat out, we're not trying to sell this to people in nursing homes or homebound. We will explain it in those situations, but for the benefit of the kids that we're meeting with, because they might be interested. So it's a really great way to offer an additional service to the community and to let people know that their protection can be worldwide, and that there would be no extra expense if they were to die away from home.
So how is this being received?
Well, it's been a journey to get our infrastructure built up to support the sale and the offering of this plan. But Rob, the momentum here the last few months has been outstanding. We're seeing sales almost double every month right now. It's growing rapidly because our sales professionals are finally catching on, and our funeral directors are catching on to the benefit that this offers. So we're seeing a lot of positive momentum right now. We're very excited about that. I think the key thing to remember here is, we might be in a COVID environment as we're recording this podcast, but the environment that we have today is not going to be there forever. At some point, people are gonna want to go out and see friends and family again. They're going to have their medical care that's a necessity, and they're going to vacation too, and they're still going to spend their winters. If I'm in the north, I'm going to probably spend, if I can, my winters in a warmer climate. Those things will continue to happen. So we just got to be careful we don't project today's circumstances onto the future, because this plan, if someone buys us in their 50s or 60s, they're going to have decades of peace of mind and benefit of owning the protection and having that lasting and lifetime benefit.
Todd, it's always a pleasure when I get to talk with you, whether it's in this format or in others, but definitely appreciate the insight, and I appreciate the visit today.
Rob, glad to be here and looking forward to the next time on another topic.
If you would like to reach out to us about this episode or this series, please visit us online at funeraldirectorslife.com/FD Talks. There you can find information about this episode and submit any comments, suggestions, or feedback about our series. And we also welcome your ideas for future episodes. Join us next time on FD Talks as we explore ideas, insights, and solutions for serving families in a rapidly changing marketplace.